Did you know that 62% of student veterans are first-time college students? I'm curious, how do classroom challenges compare to those in the trenches? In this episode, we are talking about student veterans on campus. Welcome to Higher Ed Next. In this episode, we are talking about student veterans on campus. Now, since the GI Bill of 1944, millions of qualified military veterans have been able to pursue college. However, the challenges that exist for these students aren't just financial. Nearly half of student veterans are married and/or have kids, 62% identify as first generation, and for those that have served in the military for an extended period of time, acclimating to the academic and social culture of a college campus can be a major adjustment. During this conversation, we discuss the myriad issues that impact student veterans seeking higher education and ask what is missing from the college experience for today's student veterans. Here's our conversation. Hello, welcome to Higher Ed Next, y'all. Today I have with me Jose Soto, a psychology major at St. Xavier University, Vice President of the Student Veterans Alliance and Air Force veteran. And I also have with me today Pat Beckwith, Director of the Military and Veteran Services Office at the University of Montana and former company commander and executive officer for the Army National Guard. Jose and Pat, wonderful to talk with you both today. As you know, this conversation is really centered around supporting the student veteran experience. And I think especially over the last few years, there's been a lot of really important discussion about how do we support student veterans on campus with everything from college life and navigating college experiences from a different perspective, as well as how do we address some of the issues and challenges that student veterans are facing when it comes to important issues like mental health on campus. So I think given the background of you both, this is really timely, very excited to have an open and honest dialogue about how we can better support student veterans on campus. Looking forward to it. Jose, tell me a little bit about your journey into higher education, particularly as an Air Force veteran. What challenges, if any, did you encounter as you were deciding which college to attend and navigating the overall college experience for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to describe it is non-traditional, in a sense. Getting out of the military itself was a transition that was rather rough. So trying to navigate that with college was something that seemed near impossible initially. I had gotten out. I actually attended community college in Chicago at Harold Washington. You get your DD 214 or more or less your freedom from the military, but you're not told which way to go, left or right. So I had to more or less find out, one, what I wanted to do, and secondly, who I was as a person post-military. With that being stated, I initially went for a computer science degree. I didn't necessarily want to go into the police realm. I was a military police officer for 6 years in the military, so I'm all like, I kind of had enough of that. I want to do something different that potentially has some growth potential going forward. With that being said, I come to find that computer science was not for me. I struggled a bit with the concepts as well as, lacked my purpose. So at that point, I did what I thought I could do best. I got back into the labor field. I had come to find also that in itself was probably not for me because of the ailments in which I had gained in the military, if you will. I wasn't as young as I thought I was. So working at a rail yard, 16 hours a day did some havoc on my body. So more or less, not too sure if you heard about it, the COVID epidemic happened and shut a lot of things down. And
I have no clue about the pandemic.
yeah, I don't know. It's just this little thing that kind of happened around the world or something like that. But overall, it definitely closed things down a little bit. And, at that point in life, again, I had a lot going on. More or less, I kind of wanted to find my purpose, if you will. I again was going through some life transitions at the point, and I thought that I got this amazing ability that I've been given, and that's the GI Bill. And with it, I'm all like, well, let me take another shot at this college thing. I mean, it would be at that point to where I'm just like, I want to do something, and what do I really like? And come to find it's helping people. So I'm all like, well, what can I do? So I became a psychology major. I was able to go to community college out in the southern burbs, which was Moraine Valley, and I was able to, get back on track. I think with COVID, it kind of helped ease myself into that transition itself, more or less with the online schooling, as well as, not as many students in a single session, if you will. So it wasn't overwhelming as much. Was able to then have the opportunity to apply to different schools and everything. And I wanted to have a school or university that kind of fit what I was passionate about, and come to find that St. Xavier University, which is located on the south side of Chicago, was, their core values fit perfectly to mine. And currently, that's what I'm doing now. Again, I'm a psychology major with a minor in social work, and going forward, I want to continue my pursuit of my education, and go on to do great things.
That's awesome. And do you kind of going back to what you were saying, do you feel like you found your purpose now? Do you feel a bit more firm about that as you go forward into your future career?
Absolutely. I had the fortunate or unfortunate opportunity to kind of find out who I was in a point that more or less changed my perspective into life.
Yeah.
Going into it again, I come to find that I suffered from a lot of mental disabilities, whether it be depression, anxiety, as well with I had my substance abuse disorders that
Mhm.
I'd come to find, which was hindering me in life. And towards the latter half of my work experience, I didn't necessarily want to function or be here overall. So I come to find that I would do one of the most scary things in life, and I asked for help. I was
Mhm.
able to be admitted into the VA hospital that's over here, inpatient program, for my substance abuse disorder, and was able to learn a lot about myself, and also learn, how this affects anybody. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. You can be your next door neighbor. You can be somebody down the street. This is something that affects everybody. And I think it was at that point that I had my aha moment. I'm like, I don't want computers anymore. I want to help people. I want to help somebody who could have been me.
Yeah.
Looking back, I know that I wanted to be the person that was standing in front of me, giving me that drive, that passion, to let them know, hey, you can do this and you will do this. And although it may seem scary, you have all the ability in the world to change, no matter what you had done from before, or what mistakes you had made, or anything like that. You can change. And I wanted to do that. And I knew that pursuing, my education would help solidify that dream.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. As you talked a little bit about your experiences and some of the issues that you were grappling with, um, again, I think it harkens back to one, you having a very unique experience as someone who is coming onto a college campus who has already, I would say, have had a very pivotal moments in your life within your professional, especially within your military career, that obviously are impacting your college choice as well as the way that you navigate college. But also, um, admittedly, a part of me kind of struggles with even naming student veterans as like a non-traditional student population, which I guess by the definition, yes, but also in the sense of the issues that you speak about with mental health, substance use and abuse. Like there is, I feel like there's a lot of connections to what a lot of college students are experiencing, which I feel like makes it I think connects the that college experience for a lot of students. Pat, I'm actually interested to have your perspective on this in terms of what are your thoughts and kind of where do you lie in the on the in terms of student veterans as non-traditional students on campus. I think particularly given a lot of the issues and concerns that student veterans come to your office with, are they drastically different or are they the same as any other college student who is attempting to complete their 4-year degree?
Yeah, that's a great talking point. And, to Jose's, I appreciate everything you shared. That's an incredible story. And that captures a lot of the students that I have at the University of Montana and some of their background experiences. And the more that I engage with them, the more it comes back to they are non-traditional administratively, but they are absolutely a traditional student in regards to how they fill out the demographic on campus. And to your point, Cobretti, the idea of mental health has just reinforced that. Our student veterans come with potential mental health challenges, but we're seeing that uptick in the general population. And the way that we want to frame that conversation is, hey, check it out. These student veterans have the skills and attributes to lead this conversation and lead us through these challenges. And Jose, you nailed it at the end, buddy. Like the ability to change in an educational environment is absolutely what we want to cultivate, because student veterans, they have this level of maturity and understanding, and they've really gone into these friction points that a lot of other students are starting to encounter, and it's lead that way. And it's not just in mental health. I think it's in so many other facets of education that we really just want to dig deeper into that. How do we put those student veterans as administratively non-traditional as the traditional leader for the rest of student body?
Kind of as you're saying, like they student veterans fill out so many demographics that you're seeing across campus. It's not that is being a veteran is, I feel like, just one part of your identity. Like there's considerations of race and gender and class, whether you're the first person in your family to go to college, whether you went to community college before, like Jose did. Like there's just so many facets, I think, that kind of color a person's experience. Granted, I think the veteran experience might be the most like prominent, especially if that you're coming directly from serving in the military to then being on a college campus. But there are so many other factors that are a part of that, which is, I think, why it's great to have a military and veteran services office on campus. And actually, I'd like to kind of pivot and go there, Pat, with you. I think given your role with on campus as kind of the inaugural director over at the University of Montana, but I feel like in many cases, the services provided for military and student veterans on campuses were kind of already there before the office was created. It just needed its official stamp of approval. I mean, just looking at the accomplishments at the University of Montana, second most veterans per capita in the nation, being the first Purple Heart University in the nation, given these recognitions, how does the creation, or in this case, a rebrand of this new office further the mission of supporting student veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, full disclosure, every higher education institution knows that at the base level, they need somebody to process VA education benefits.
Yeah.
Legally, you can't even receive students with VA education benefits unless you have somebody that's a school certifying official on your campus. And I think most institutions meet that benchmark because it's all about money. It's the institutions that go a step further and honestly hire at greater capacity more employees to truly address and support student veterans. It's more than just processing their benefits. Yes, that's important. We want to make sure that students get paid. I mean, that's a benchmark. But outside of that, and as Jose alluded to, there's a lot of needs that you have to meet up front in order to capitalize on this as a transition point. If you miss those marks as an institution, you're really just transactionally taking their benefits and not really helping them rebrand themselves. And Jose, again, man, that word you use, like you had to recreate your identity. And coming out of the military, I see a lot of students that's their identity. And I break it to them. I'm like, this is a great place to compartmentalize that, leverage it, and look at new ways to create an identity. But in order to have that opportunity, they have to have that conversation regularly with other veterans and other assets on campus. And so our office, genuinely what it did is looked at opportunities to grow. I mean, they hired me, and instantly I hired an additional employee. I've got 2 more employees coming into the office in the next 2 months. I mean, it is just growing. It's momentum, buddy. And, the reality is you need leadership. And our president, Seth Bodner, he's a veteran. He's a former Green Beret. He's seen it. He's done it. He's actually in the Montana National Guard. More power to him. I don't know how he balances that, but he does it because he had relatability. He wants to understand and be able to leverage veterans as assets as well. So, we have to create the programs and services to do it, and you need personnel in big offices.
Yo, I love what you just said, especially towards the beginning with the full disclosure, in the sense that I feel like a lot of universities, and the example you use with student veterans is absolutely that. But I feel like it's a very some colleges and universities, like they want the benefits, they want the transaction, and then occasionally they want to slap a accomplishment or a recognition on top of that to say, hey, we done it, without any follow up or providing adequate resources to actually support that student veteran population. From what I've seen, there's an increase in the number of student veteran offices that are being charged to do just that, like at the University of Montana. But there's millions of other student veterans on campuses without colleges or support offices that are able to provide those services. So not only are they in a space where they have to recreate or their identity, but they're also having to figure out what support levers do I have in this particular case. You said I was a valuable member of this community, and now I'm being left to figure it out on my own. Have any of you encountered, or have either of you encountered that? That feeling of not having that adequate support on campus?
As a student, as from the student perspective, not necessarily. I've come to find, or I've been fortunate enough to say that, post military, I've had the opportunity to go to colleges that keep the veterans in mind. Whether that's getting in contact with some form of liaison that's particularly seated at the college or university that deals with any form of veterans affairs, not even particularly for the veteran themselves. Again, a lot of the universities, they'll take on the dependents and whatnot as well. So incorporating them into the conversation as well is critical. But again, I personally cannot say that I have had a bad experience so far. I'm gonna knock on wood right now, but so far I've had the resources given to me, and more or less had the opportunity to voice myself and kind of be heard. But again, that was more me voicing myself, because initially coming in, I just wanted to be that guy that went to class, got what I needed to get out of it, and go home. Like that was it. That was the bare essentials that I felt that I needed. But again, getting back more into now, I've come to find that, having the ability to let the university themselves know, like, hey, like we are very much so prominent. We are very much so alive, because we've had the issues of not only here at the university itself, but at different universities and colleges around, indicating that their veteran communities aren't as active as they used to be, if that makes sense. And it's something that we all are striving to better. Again, we just had a regional conference for the Student Veterans of America, which is the bigger organization out there that ultimately covers the colleges and universities in the United States. And, we got together at the regional level here in Chicago. They had, I believe it was maybe about 15 colleges or so that were there. All the heads of their associations came together, and we're all like, we have to do something. We have to let either student veterans know that we're here, or we need to work with the schools to let them know what resources we could use, or how we can get help as a veteran population. And I think, going forward, that has been one of the main objectives for the leadership roles of the veteran communities at the different universities and colleges here. So again, if there are schools out there that aren't necessarily there for their veteran community, it's a process, but we're trying to make it that we are heard and we are seen.
Yeah. I think attending St. Xavier University, which is already, I believe, a member of the Yellow Ribbon GI Enhancement Education Program. So it sounds like, again, you've happened to attend universities that I think really are intentional about supporting the student veteran experience. I'd also, if you could go a little bit further with that, I'd be curious from your perspective, what are some key programs and services that you think all colleges and student veteran offices should provide to student veterans for them to have a happy, healthy, and safe experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a little insight, Pat. I know that I'm like taking all the limelight right now. I'll give you your opportunity and stuff like that. But yeah, more or less, again, like as you had you had discussed, the Yellow Ribbon program itself is awesome. Again, it helps offset the cost of the private universities and everything by covering cost of tuitions or fees, and it ultimately could help the veteran, by not having to necessarily choose a particular college because it fits the parameters of the GI Bill, right? Like, I really want to go to this college, but the GI Bill doesn't really cover it. But here goes this nifty thing called the Yellow Ribbon program that, will help offset, and especially with the time of inflation and everything like that, every dollar counts, So to have a school that participates in that, it's amazing. But again, not only that, but having the opportunity to have a standalone organization be within the university, I think is critical. Again, for St. Xavier University, we have the Student Veterans Alliance, and ultimately it's there to help promote the camaraderie of the student veterans and their families as well, and to more or less be there through any form of time, whether it's helping with a quiz or a test, or focusing on grad school, or getting into the stuff that's not fun to talk about, having a hard day, sitting down, having a cup of coffee and a bag of chips that could change somebody's entire perspective. And I think having the opportunity to have something like that within the overall university life, I think it's critical.
Yeah,
I really do think it is.
Pat, I'm curious from your perspective, as you bring on more personnel within your specific office, what are some of the key programs and services that your office at the University of Montana is focusing on?
Absolutely. It builds on what Jose already addressed. And, up front, when you're making that transition, you're losing purpose. And so we've got to rekindle some form of purpose in academics. Academics themselves don't always kindle that purpose, especially when a student veteran age 25 to 30 something sits down with a bunch of 18-year-olds in the freshman class, and it's a little awkward. So, how do we say, hey, stay the course? Like, these first 6 months are going to feel out of place. And a part of that is programs that quickly show those student veterans where they're getting gains early that are going to create those pathways. And, the number one program that we have kicked off just this term is a student ambassador program. And it leverages our student veterans organization. It really puts students, their peers, in places of influence. And that ambassador program, you have student veterans that are within colleges across campus. So for us, like College of Forestry, College of Business, they're an ambassador in that college. And then I'm able to identify any student veteran that's incoming, and I put them in direct contact with each other. Very similar to the military's mentorship program. This is more focused on the academic portion of how to quickly learn the ropes on campus so that they can start to perform and feel comfortable as they transition back in an environment they haven't been in. but the longevity of it is truly career focused. So if a student enters, let's say again, the College of Forestry, and their ambassador who's a junior, senior, and they have that relationship, that individual will then migrate and become an alumni, and that relationship continues, and it helps them see, hey, how do I get in potentially to become either a game warden or get into the forestry department or any one of these jobs. And it really keeps that purpose connected and simultaneously builds those relationships within peers. Jose, full disclosure again, like as an administrator, like I'm removed from the conversation. It's sometimes hard for me to connect. And as you notice in your organization, those veteran peers on campus, that's the nebulous of actually creating impact. That's the culture. And so having them step up and drive that is an incredible asset. Outside of just the Student Veterans Organization, some other critical programs that I see are things like, the school putting money into career development, whether it's resume building, networking, platforms that help with that internal networking, getting them to experiment in internships, paid internships, ideally, micro internships that they can conduct in short iterations to really test out what they want to do. Those are all places that we really focus our attention right now.
Yeah. I love the intentionality behind it, especially in terms of an ambassador within each college to connect incoming student veterans and make sure that they get the right foot on the ground. Like that's, again, going back to just leadership and mentorship and embedding that community within the academic experience, which I imagine could feel, again, jarring if you're if you're in a class with an 18-year-old who's like fresh-eyed, ready to go, like college experience, and you've seen some life at that point, and when you're 25 and just coming out of the military, like it's a little, there's a difference there, that I imagine is a bit hard to explain in that regard. I also read a little bit about the partnership that you did with the Warriors and Quiet Waters Foundation to produce the Overwatch project. Could you speak a little bit more to that? Because I think that relates a lot to some of the conversation that we were having earlier in regards to mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I came into the position, there was some conversation about, especially coming out of COVID, about how do we address mental health? Specifically, how can we have an impactful way to address mental health with veterans? And the catalyst, and straightforward, the catalyst for a lot of incidents with suicide is weapons, and military personnel are very accustomed to having weapons. And so how do you have those conversations, the hard conversations? And what we looked at is that was an immediate need. That's critical. How do we ensure the safety and safeguard our student veterans as assets? We look at their mental health immediately when they're coming in or when they're an existing student, and ensure that we are open and honest with that conversation so that we can move into some of the honestly more fun or more, altruistic elements of being a student veteran on campus. But you have to answer the call. And, within that project, it was being very honest with ourselves and saying, hey, if mental health is a concern and we want to address it, we need to bring these assets on campus and open this conversation up and allow student veterans to take the lead in this element. And it cultivated a great conversation among student veterans, even in the low turnout era of COVID. But it helped kind of predicate how we address things in the future. And that's really what that opportunity shows is, from my standpoint, I want to ensure that I don't just do things to do things, and especially things that I think are right. I need to ask my student veterans where I can help them provide a service or an opportunity that's going to build the conversation or empower them to be better or to answer a need. And going forward, those needs are going to be very different as we move on. And the need right now, and something I'm trying to answer is, I have a lot of student veterans. They're seniors. They're a term away from graduating, and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I'm trying to answer that need with real interactions with employers and veteran employers coming on campus and shaking their hands and telling them, just give me your resume. It's going to work.
Yeah, and giving them that confidence to be able to like have those interactions and like know that they're going to be covered, and that their experience both in college and before college is also valuable when it comes to those interactions and having that connection with those employers too. Uh, kind of along that line, I'm interested to hear from you both. Do you feel like the way colleges and universities are set up now and with the fallout from the pandemic and the focus on mental health, I don't want to call it a crisis. Because that's a really large spectrum and a really broad term, but I do feel like it's a very prominent concern for many college students, student veterans being one of the major populations in this case. Do you feel like college campuses are able to address or have the resources to fully address issues of mental health and be able to discuss mental health issues with students in a really powerful, effective way? If not, how can we make colleges and universities better in that regard?
It's timely. The University of Montana, and again, it's a reflection of the leadership being sensitive to these issues, and then also backing it with programmatic changes. And we've hired people in our what's called our wellness center, and we just call it overall wellness. And the state of Montana even held a conference to address wellness, and our veteran organizations across those campuses sat in on that and contributed largely to that conversation because of the experiences dealing with mental health and how to build resiliency and face those challenges. And the wellness center at the University of Montana is really, it's aggressive. I mean, we have Wellness Wednesdays, and if you look at our calendar on Wellness Wednesdays, there's stuff all across campus for students to engage in and open that conversation up. And then outside of just the Wednesdays, the Wellness Center has built, similar to like the Student Ambassador Program, they have wellness ambassadors that are embedded in colleges that have contact information and hours that they're available to just have those conversations and build a culture of accepting that, to quote Jose, like I'm having a bad day. Like that is something we need to be okay with saying and cultivating, and then helping carry each other through it, instead of just going about it alone. And I think veterans have a great opportunity leading that. And I've partnered with our wellness center to look at ways of, how do I not only just make things for the student veterans, make events or opportunities, but how do I integrate my student veterans into the overall conversation? I think that's even more empowering. I don't want to isolate, I want to integrate.
Exactly. Right. And then because you don't want to create a silo for an experience where you hope to like fully integrate them into the student life experience for sure. Jose, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, excellent insight, Pat. I'm be stealing some of those ideas. I forgot my pen and paper, but it's all in here. So I'll be talking with our university more with it. But getting to your question, well, we have our wellness centers here. People get sick. They take days off because they have a really high temperature. But what if somebody is not feeling 100% there mentally? You know what I mean? It's somewhat a different of a stigma. Mental health days, they're up and coming, if you will, and I feel that having the ability to kind of sit back and be like, hey, I'm not okay right now, and maybe I should take some time to kind of get back on path, or to try to find some balance, if you will. I think it's very important. So I know, again, initially getting out, it was kind of one of those things that you kind of like shy away from. Like, I don't necessarily want help because, back in the mentality of the military, it's just like, you don't want to be that guy, more or less. And, if you do go to mental health and stuff like that, I don't want them to take my gun. I don't want them, more or less, putting you on a list and then everybody like doesn't like you. And that kind of bleeds into your civilian life, if you will. You have this negative, way of thinking about asking for help and, being open with yourself. You got the military personality always in the back of your head, but like, no, you got it, man. Just keep pushing through. Again, I have to be resilient. I have to be strong. I have to do this, and it's sometimes a pride thing as well. I'm a veteran. I did this. I done that. I was here. I was there. And for me to come tell somebody like, hey, I'm not feeling good, that's just like that form of mentality. That's just like it gets embedded with you and it stays for such a long time. And I think having the opportunity to kind of get down and have that conversation. Nobody wants to have that conversation, but it's the conversation that's needed. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to express yourself. It's okay to have the opportunity to let somebody know that things aren't okay. And I think with that, having those small little conversations, and uh, they go on to be, policy changes. They go on to be um, more or less something that's brought to the forefront of topics of, university ways of practices and whatnot. So I think that having the opportunity for schools as well as jobs to have that the ability to let people know that it's okay to seek mental health, because at the end of the day, if you're not body, mind, and soul, you're not going to be 100% of you. And I think having the opportunity, such as a wellness center, or such as somebody that is put aside to kind of be that liaison, like, hey, bud, like, you haven't had your 3 cups of coffee this morning. Everything okay? Like being able to do that. And I know as a veteran student, sometimes it is uncomfortable going outside and talking to somebody that you're not really familiar with. So having that bond with another veteran student is like that jumping off point, if you will, and again, here at the university itself, we strive to ensure that our veteran population is taken care of. And that's not only the veterans themselves, it's the veterans' families, because, I mean, if you're not doing good with your family as well, then you're probably not going to be, there 100%. So putting into perspective not only the singular veteran, but also his, direct family as well is important to ensure that, they're able to function how they need to function and everything.
I feel like often people will try to like 3 cups of coffee their way to mental health, or
I'm on one today, so
right, you're on one. Well, okay. Well, I mean, I'm on like 1.5. And look, honestly, like that 1.5 is not enough for me to be like, okay, now I can have a good day, right? Like that's just it's not feasible, right? And I think, granted, I think the impact of the pandemic cannot be overstated. If anything, to just have a pure and honest conversation and be able to say, like, I'm not having a good day, and that's okay. It will be okay. And if I'm not okay, like, who's there to help me? What are the resources that are there to help? I'd love to hear from you both again about any resources that, for student veterans who will watch this interview, and or any colleges or universities who may look to this interview for, what are some things that they can implement in terms of programs and services and support that, both you, Pat, and Jose have mentioned today. Any other resources that you think would be helpful for the student veteran that is attending college? What should they know?
Jose, I'll piggyback off you on this one. I'm really curious to hear what kind of stuff you've implemented or are a part of, as a student veteran leader right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, going forward, for any veterans that's out there, listening to this interview, it's important to know that you're not alone. Moreover, you have people that are going to be out there for you. We're rooting for you. If you have a goal, pursue it. In the great words of Ford, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So again, you can only go as far as you allow yourself to go. And with that being said, you may not always have a good day, but it doesn't make it a bad life. And if you ever feel that you're alone, or you have nobody to talk to, there's always the Veterans Crisis Line. I'm not sure if this is a prominent thing with you guys out over there, if you guys are able to give that pat to your students and everything. The number for the Veterans Lights is 1-800-273-8255. And again, I wouldn't be here if not for them. So don't let your pride get in the way. If you need help, give them a call.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. Absolutely. That's the crisis line is something that we implement and we use widely. And, to build off what you're talking about, if, if I'm addressing every student veteran in this nation and they're on the cusp of determining if they want to use their GI Bill and go to college, the first thing I tell them is look for a place of connection. And if you're not able to connect when you're looking for a college with somebody like Jose, or feel a good vibe that you're going to transition into a place where you're comfortable addressing your mental health, or you see that support as something easily available, keep search for a place that you can be guaranteed connection. Once you land on campus and if you haven't felt that, it might be too late, and you deserve better. And that's where I found myself when I was looking for a college. I told myself, I don't care about how fancy it is or any of that other business. I want a place that I can genuinely cultivate relationships and feel not just appreciated, but trusted, and build confidence in where I was coming from. Because, like Jose, I was lost. I didn't quite know after the military experiences I had how I was going to define myself. And, the interactions you have, whether it's with a business or a college, you should quickly get that vibe that these people understand, and they're going to take me to where I want to be, and they're going to accept the fact that some days I'm a little bit off, but they're going to know that overall I'm going to crush it. And that's how I look at our student veterans, is look for programs that trust you, lift you up, and give you a platform to really just perform at your maximum potential.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing those resources, Pat and Jose. I feel like a lot of what we spoke about today are issues that are going to take time to navigate, not only just for the student veteran, but I think for college students in general, and anyone attending college today. I am curious, however, what are some promising trends, or what um, I think particularly for you, Pat, what are you seeing within your office at the University of Montana or on your campus? And Jose, for you, what are you seeing at St. Xavier that gives you hope about support for student veteran experiences on campus?
Yeah, I appreciate asking that question, because we have to be progressive in how we look at the overall conversation and the narrative of student veterans as they come to campus. And, it's going to be a changing environment. Student veterans, or really the military affiliated families that come here, are changing, whether that's based off of the transition out of wartime era, and, we're starting to see more dependents and spouses use benefits, or even the veterans themselves may not have like wartime experience, but that does not take away from their experiences and the culture that they're still coming from being different, and us needing to address those challenges as they come into higher education. But that's where really at the University of Montana and with our leadership, what we're really looking at is what conversation do you lead with? I completely understand, even from my own experiences, that in some ways, man, I was fragile. Like if I hit a barrier, like there were breaking points. But sometimes when we lead with those conversations as an institution, it creates this overall cultural nuance that the student veterans are fragile. And what happens is the demographic on campus that doesn't really know the veteran experience then looks at that population as fragile, and it undercuts their true potential. And so right now, I don't have the right answer, but I'm trying to navigate that conversation. Is how do I lead with, hey, I trust you. We're confident in your ability to perform well academically and be an asset on this campus. Well, simultaneously, we understand that there are some gaps that we want to help fill, and we will be there for you. Like I don't want to lead with those elements of, hey, you're fragile. Let's kind of walk this along. And I think, as I've had this conversation with student veterans, I can see them smile, and they say like, dang, you're the first person on campus to tell me that I'm an asset, and I'm like, absolutely. Like I'm confident, given your skills and attributes from the military. Simple things like you're probably going to be the first person in your class on time. You're probably going to sit up front. You're going to probably sit up straight and take notes. You're probably not going to be wearing pajamas, all these factors where I'm like, trust me, you're going to quickly see that you're an asset in the classroom. And, having that conversation with them and growing on that to say, okay, now that we're really building this culture, how do I take this and lead with the university saying, hey, this is the new narrative, and the faculty and administrators see it as well. And it just changes everything. And, it doesn't take away from the support, but it allows that support to genuinely transition into veterans are a core piece of the American identity, and it starts within these education institutions.
Absolutely. I think to what you were saying, it's about changing that narrative. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think that there is a lot to be because of the experiences you all have had. Like, you're bringing so many assets and so many skills, not even just to the university, but to the classroom environment that others can pick up from and be influenced by. Now, granted, I did attend my college classes in pajamas, and some days that's what I needed to get through my day. I'll just take that little piece with me, but no, I don't think you necessarily have to have a right answer. I think just acknowledging that you don't have a right answer is, I think, I'll just say from my perspective, I think I can appreciate, and I know that my parents, one of which was a military veteran, instilled on me of like, I don't care what you like, whether it's good or whether it's bad. I just care that you're honest and truthful with me, so I can make the best decision for myself. And I always value administrators on campus who are able to level with me in that way. And I can imagine, Jose, that if any of that drives with you, that may be what you have picked up from your campus environment as well, in terms of just working with administrators, working with other peers who are able to be honest and level with you. And, sometimes the day isn't so great, but it's not all, again, doom and gloom. Like, there's some positives to take from it. You can have regular conversations that aren't just centered on being fragile or needing this or needing that. It could also be about what you're accomplishing or how you got through the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it's heart and minds. That's all I can really say. We only way that we can change the narrative is by changing the narrative. Again, once I got into the position itself, I sat down with the guys and gals at the vet center, and I let them know, like, hey, we have the opportunity to change the perspective of the university and how they see us. I didn't want to necessarily continue with the path of the disgruntled vet that, is just he don't talk to nobody or he don't do that. Being very open, having the ability to embrace other communities within the university itself, let them know, like, hey, this is what we do. We're just like you. Maybe a little bit older, may have, done other things and had different experiences, but overall, though, at the end of the day, we're all here for a goal and objective, and again, that's to do well in our studies and graduate, and along the way, I want to have the ability to share in these experiences with the community, whether it's at the university or outside the community. We have the opportunity now where we're going to be going out to the VFWs as a university and expressing to them, different benefits that they can use to potentially go back to school and everything like that. If you have that opportunity, I'd say, take it 100% of the time, because again, the outside is going to see you however they want to see you. But if you give them a reason to think differently, that's the best thing we can do. And overall, from being more proactive in regards to being an organization, letting the school know, like, hey, like we are here, we want to be a part of the university, we want to make an impact, going forward. We want to let other communities know that, hey, like, you can work with us, and we're not going to eat your crayons or anything like that. We want to collaborate as well. We want to ensure that we're getting what we need to get done and leaving a positive impact.
Absolutely. Is that a common thing of eating people's crayons? Is that a
We,
is
we
that a
didn't we didn't do it in the Air Force. I'm not sure about Pat, what you guys did in the Army, but we know the branch
Marine.
that does it. Yeah, we know the branch that does it. I
Oh,
usually have to keep the crayons on me. We have a large body of Marines here, so usually
Yeah.
got we keep them, and if they get a little angry or anything like that, just throw a crayon and hair to it.
what?
Now, if any of the Marines are listening right now, please don't hurt me.
Oh no! Yeah, please do that. Please
We're
do
outnumbered, Jose.
that. Well, I think that's a that's a good place to end for this interview. Thank you both, Pat and Jose, for joining me today and having a really great, insightful conversation about supporting student veteran experiences on campus. And I look forward to talking with you both soon. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Cobretti.
Well, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing and listening to the perspectives of student veterans in higher education. For more information related to this discussion, please visit bestcolleges.com where you can find additional news and commentary. I'm Cobretti Williams. Until next time.